anniversary of Fukushima meltdown disaster. On the day of 7th anniversary, I like to focus on the people who have been suffered and suffering, the Fukushima victims and children. People who were forced to evacuate it without their members of family. You know, I have cats, so I know the pet is one of my family. They had to abandon all pets, and the farmers abandoned their cattle and pigs, chickens, horses, and people who evacuated by themselves voluntarily because they know the place they had lived are no longer safe to live in. And people who wanted evacuated by themselves, but they couldn't because there are no resource and they have a job in there. They know that it is not a safe place to live, but they couldn't move. In many cases, wives and children left there, and husbands stayed and then earned living money. So many families are divided. Those people who have been enduring for 7 years, 7 years passed like a one of a blink, but for those people, I think these 7 years are seriously heavy, agonizing time. And even I think that I can imagine the true pictures of those people. The people's suffering, pain, anger, frustrations, confusions, unpleasantness, unhappiness, and despair. It's already more than 2,000 people are dead relating to this Fukushima meltdown disaster by the end of the year of 2014. And of course, more people died after that too. Those people's conditions and sufferings are getting lighter. I actually didn't think so. I don't think so. They are still suffering. They are not saved, and they are wondering what the government is doing for them. The voluntary evacuee, those housing compensations were already cut March last year. And the children, it's already 197 children are diagnosed as thyroid cancers, and then nearly 160 kids already had a surgery. But government and Fukushima municipal, they denied they had connection of those epidemic and Fukushima meltdown disaster. Especially Japanese government break the law which raised 1 millisievert per year safety guideline of radiation up to 20 millisievert per year, so that before 2011, actually it's the 1 millisievert, more than 1 millisievert per year. The area is a very restricted area. People couldn't drink any water there, and people could not eat food. Even people could not go toilet in that area in more than 1 millisievert per year. It's called restricted area. Now, those restricted area, kids are living. People are living there because they raised those safety bar illegally. How long will this last? It's after 7 years. They said it's emergency circumstance of the nuclear radiation. After 7 years, it's still the condition, and the people didn't lower the safety level, couldn't lower the safety level. So I don't think that any situation is getting better. This time I want to just focus to the people, and then I let other focusing to the other people to speak out, because of course this Fukushima disaster, meltdown disaster is ongoing. It is ongoing, never be contained yet. And the plant, the melted core, people cannot anyway get close, so that we don't know exactly situation. Where are they? We don't know. How to retrieve? We don't know, because it's too dangerous. So that the Fukushima, Daiichi, those power plants are emitting the radioactive material to the air, to the ground, to the Pacific Ocean, all the time, even now. So it's never contained. But anyway, government is putting a focus. Instead of putting the money to the those saving the victims to the Olympic. I have one letter from a friend of mine who lives in Tokyo. I just read the information. 17,895 children fled from Fukushima, and more than half were brought back to Fukushima now. Only 8,624 children are remaining in the place of escape outside of Fukushima, whose mother, despite all difficulties, still want to protect their children from the nuclear radiation danger. They are even more and more ridiculed coldly by the unsuspecting fellow citizens, as if they were the culprit and stupid. So everything works as planned and wanted by the government. And instead of government to put money to save those children, they are putting a lot of money to the Olympic. The estimate are the government will spend about 2,000 billion yen. And then approximately 450 billion yen expected as income from the event. In other words, more than 3/4 of the total gigantic event costs are paid out of Japanese taxes, so that some industries make money from it. I have big anger, and then this person has big anger. He said, our anger is getting stronger and more intense. Our desire for justice grows bigger and heavier. Kazuhiko Kobayashi in Tokyo. So, I like to pray minutes of silence for the people who passed away by this meltdown disaster, and who are still suffering in Fukushima and out of Fukushima because for this disaster, and because government doesn't take care of them well. So please, minutes of silence, let's pray. We like to speak out. Several people maybe speak out. First, Steve Zerter, please.
Thank you, Chizo, and thank you for joining us today. And I feel that the fact that we're here today, we haven't forgotten. All of us here know that Fukushima continues. And this is despite 7 years, it's long 7 years, where the media in this country and especially in Japan have not let people know what's going on. What is going on? Well, they built an ice wall to supposedly surround the water. They spent over $300 million. Water, radioactive water, is still leaking. There's still thousands of tons of water in tanks surrounding Fukushima. Imagine that, a major earthquake, and that water would be released. A lot of these tanks would burst, that water would go in the Pacific Ocean. At the same time, as Jesus said, they have been not able to remove the melted nuclear rods at the site. They're melted inside these reactors. So the statement that Prime Minister Abe said that they have decommissioned or decontaminated that area is not true. It's a lie. And he said that statement to get the Olympics. It's absolutely not true. And in fact, the disaster continues. At the same time, we now know that thousands, tens of thousands of workers, many of them contract day workers, have been sent into the plant without proper training, without proper health and safety protection. Most of them have not been tested. Many of them are going to get diseases, cancer, kidney diseases, other kinds of diseases when you become contaminated with radiation. And these workers are going to suffer alone. A lot of them were brought in by the Yakuza. The government, which is really running TEPCO now, is actually using the Yakuza, the corrupt, basically gang organizations, to recruit workers. So this shows really the nature of the Japanese government, that this is a national problem. It's not a problem of an individual company, it's a problem of the state, because the state pushed nuclear power, and yet they refuse to protect the workers and take responsibility, direct responsibility. All the people who work at that plant should not be subcontractors. They should be working for the Japanese state as public workers. They are public workers. They're doing a public service, trying to protect the people of Fukushima and the people of Japan against further radioactive danger. We also know that there's a danger of another major earthquake, Kanto earthquake, in which the government has said that they expect, if this earthquake hits, 235,000 people to be killed. Now, imagine that. The government says we have to prepare for an earthquake in which 235,000 people may be killed, and we're going to be opening up nuclear plants in the same areas where this earthquake is going to take place? I would see that's a sign. I would say that's a sign of insanity. It's a sign of craziness that the government will admit that there's going to be a major earthquake within 30 years, and yet they're going to restart the nuclear plants in the same area. That is a criminal government. Now, we also in the last 7 years have had major dangers of war. The election of Donald Trump, the madman, the crazy man, who wants to bomb North Korea, who wants to invade Venezuela, who wants to attack countries around the world, and who has military now in Syria, U.S. military. He promised there would be no military ventures, but there are U.S. troops now in Syria, and there are U.S. troops all over the world. And this madman, this crazy criminal nut, is now joined with Abe when he visited Japan, and told Abe that Japan should militarize. Japan should get nuclear weapons. And just recently we heard that the Japanese corporations are now spending money on military hardware, military nuclear weapons. Do we need military nuclear weapons in Japan? No! Do we need another nuclear war?
No, never!
Never again, never again. This is what we have to say, because the danger of nuclear war is growing. The system is getting more and more crazy, more and more adventurous. And it is incumbent that the people of the United States, it's incumbent that the people of Japan stand together against militarization, stand together against more nuclear plants. Our survival is at stake, and I'm happy to say that people are waking up. People cannot forget. The people of Fukushima cannot forget what happened. Their children, their families cannot forget what happened. They live with it every day, and we are here in solidarity with them. We're here in solidarity with the children and the families to say, we know what you are suffering. We oppose what is going on. You need to be compensated. You have a right not to be forced back to Fukushima. The government wants to sell more rice from Fukushima around the world. Can you imagine, and I've been to Fukushima a number of times, it's covered in a mountainous area. When the explosion, the plumes went off, and the exploded plants of hydrogen blew up, the cesium was spread all over the mountains. How do you clean the mountains of Fukushima? How do you clean the mountains of radiation? You can't clean the mountains. But what the government has done is spent billions of dollars to corrupt contractors to scrape off the roofs of these houses, to take off some of the earth and say that this is decontamination. This isn't decontamination, this is madness. This is madness, that's not decontamination. You can't decontaminate Fukushima. It's in the air. When it rains there, the radiation comes down in the rain. That is what's happening. I was there, I experienced that. When you're there in the rain comes down and it covers people with radiation. We have to tell the truth to people. We have to let them know this is what happens when you have nuclear plants exploding. And we have the danger in the United States of more nuclear plants. We've had a success in 7 years. The plant here in Southern California was closed down. This is a victory.
All right.
This is a victory. So we've had victories. And also Diablo Canyon, they promised to close it down. But, you know, again, the companies want the ratepayers to pay for this. They have forced people to get nuclear plants, and then they want us to pay for the disaster, the cleanup. We should not be responsible for the cleanup. It was these companies that wanted to profit from nuclear industry that forced these plants. So we have to continue the struggle to educate people. We have to continue the struggle to speak out. Our voices will not be silent, and they become stronger. And the fact that we're here 7 years after says it will not be silenced. People will continue here. No more nuclear power, stop the nukes, and defend the people of Fukushima. Thank you, brothers and sisters.
Thank you, Steve. And this 7th anniversary rally, endorsed by also Fukushima Response and Tribal Care and the Avalon Alliance and many other groups. And thank you. Miho-san came, and Dan and Bob, and then from Fukushima Response, from far away from Petaluma. Thank you, everybody. And then this time, speak out by Steve Dyer, right? Dyer, Fukushima Response. Thank you.
All right, glad to see everybody here for Fukushima Response in Petaluma. We're still going on. The plant's still going. Fukushima's still producing radioactivity in the water here, just like she said. But I'm glad to see you all here. We'll just keep putting out the information, even though the press is basically shut down any kind of information about Fukushima. So let's continue the fight. I know we're small right now, but you know what? You never know what can happen. So I'm glad to see everybody out here. Thank you all.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you so much. And the next speaker is Miho Aida, who is gone Japan many times and sit with the people in Henoko and Takae. She knows about condition of Okinawa. So next is Miho Aida-san.
Thank you, Chizu-san. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. Let's give each other applause for showing up. That's one way to show solidarity, right? So my name again is Miho. I am an environmental educator. I work in Marine Headlands. My job is to educate future generation about environment, and we cannot live without the earth. So that's my job. Today, it marks the 7th anniversary of Fukushima, and I just want to give a prayer to those who suffer, and I want to make sure that I connect all of us, as well as all the other sufferings that are going on in a current moment. Since we're facing east, I'm just going to start with the east. To the east, where the sun rises, no matter how much suffering goes on the earth. I thank for the sun for giving us energy to rise up, no matter how hard our lives are, no matter what suffering goes on the world. I thank for the sun for the energy, and I thank for the sun for showing us there's always a light that we can follow. Thank you. To the south, I thank for the south that give us a space where we also know there are continuous sufferings going on in Haiti, Puerto Rico, and most recently, the Parkland, Florida, and all the students and teachers who have died because of the gun violence. There is still hope that this young generation is standing up, showing the world, the people like us, the adults, there is a way to speak up the truth and to change the world. You all young people, we admire you, and we want to leave the world that's better than what we created. Thank you for the young generation's leadership. We're so proud of you, and we want to follow your words. Thank you, South. To the west, Fukushima, we're here today with you for folks who became victims, for folks who stand up with the Fukushima folks, the allies on the mainland of Japan and all over the world. Also to the east, we have Okinawa, Jeju Island, and all the other Pacific areas where U.S. military continue to occupy all the places. We're facing a potential nuclear war. We're here in solidarity to not make that as a reality. We know that this coming July, the Japan-U.S. nuclear treaty is up for renewal. This is our opportunity to collaborate, to say no to the renewal of this treaty that continues to put Japanese government under the influence of U.S. government to say, keep all these nuclear plants in Japan. We're going to continue to say no. What are we going to say? What are we going to say? No! We know the system that continues to oppress these people, and we are here today facing the East and stand in solidarity. Thank you, East. To the north, up in the Arctic, we know there is a to the Arctic, where there has been a debate to open up the Arctic Ocean and the coastal plain of the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge for oil drilling. There are indigenous people who call this ocean and the land their sacred land and a sacred ocean. We're here today with all the indigenous people in the world to make sure that we all have a right to live the way that has been passed down to all these generations. We're here today to stand in solidarity with not just the people up in Arctic, but all the indigenous people in the world to make sure you continue your way of life. So thank you, North, for showing us there is a way that we can continue to fight. Back in the circle, I want you to look around. Look around all the people who came. The Fukushima is just a symptom of all of other sufferings that's going on around the world. What I think is really beautiful is that there's always the people who've shown up. Whether or not it's directly impact your own life or other people's lives. There's a famous Okinawan leader, his name is Kame-san, that's what Okinawans people call him. And he was a leader right after the World War II. And he said, oppression brings people together. And the people together bring friendship. So I'm really grateful to connect with you all today. And thank you.
Thank you, Miho-san. Anybody else like to speak out? No, you are going to read the letter later. So this is a speak out, so. Thank you, Don.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I hope you'll understand when I say that I have mixed emotions about being here with all of you. I'm happy to be here. I'm sad we have to be. We still have that accident going on, so-called accident. It's not an accident. It's intent at this point. Nobody knows better what a nuclear power plant is capable of doing at this point than TEPCO, but they're not telling the rest of us. On the way over here, I was reviewing a report put out 3 days ago by the International Atomic Energy Agency about an annual update on Fukushima. And it was notorious for what it didn't say. First of all, the ocean tests that have been taken for this year are still being conducted, so there's no report on that. They said throughout the report that they acknowledged TEPCO's efforts to do all these things, and none of the parts that I read acknowledged that they had succeeded in doing all the things they claimed in terms of, they're getting a plan together to pull the melted fuel rods out of the reactors. They're making plans to keep the runoff from going into the water, and then there's a whole bunch of double talk about different ways that they may or may not be helping with that. So it's an international agency in charge of promoting nuclear power, so I shouldn't be too surprised, but it's just illustrative that this is one of the people that the mainstream media give their time and attention to at the expense of people like No Nukes Action, Abalone Alliance, and other groups on our side of the line that are trying to get the right information out. So I'm glad that everybody here today is continuing with that effort. I will maintain that effort until it's all done, which looks like I've got a lifetime of work ahead of me, as do we all, and thank you all for coming, and sadly I look forward to meeting with you all next month at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Don.
Sorry about that.
Let's see. So no more speak out? Okay. Oh, it's okay.
I just talked over.
It's alright.
多分do this ね。Do I need to change them?
Yes, ma'am.
Hello. So, as you know that every month we are voicing out, and also we writing a letter to Prime Minister. This time the 68th time, so we wrote more than 68 letters. But every March 11th, I asking people to participate letters as much as you can. So some year I collected 100 letters. And this time, the people are forgetting about Fukushima. So anyway, but I collected a little more than a dozen letters. I cannot we cannot read everything, but I like some letters. And we have to omit many parts and omit some people's, but we try to read mainly just English letter so that both language understand. Let's see. First, this is a John wrote. Do you think you can read?
Sure.
Hello. I just won't get. Hello. I just want.
Hello. This is from John Bertucci from Fukushima Response in Sonoma County. Your Excellency, it is a grievous crime the way you have led your people to believe that it is safe to move back into the Fukushima Prefecture, ignoring the radioactive contamination already released and still being generated from the destroyed and crumbling buildings at Daiichi nuclear power plant. May fool those who desperately want to believe that you pretend, but it will not fool the deadly radionuclides, nor will it neutralize the damage they will inflict on future generations. Nuclear power is fundamentally unsafe and unnecessary, except for those financially and shamefully invested in this failed industry, and the brutal illusion of power it projects. Restoring the other reactors in Japan to serve these false and corrupted interests only dares the devil of nuclear disaster to visit more of the vulnerable communities that you are supposed to be protecting. I struggle with great sadness in saying this because Japan is such a beautiful country. An honorable nation among nations with a wise and precious culture that enriches us all. The saddest part about the venal betrayal of your people's trust, however, is that it will be the children of these you are lying to, and their children's children, who will pay for the crime you are now committing. John Bertucci, Fukushima Response.
Thank you. Sarah Weinstein wrote too. Could you read, please? Which part?
Okay. Hi. Letter to Prime Minister of Japan. It's been already 7 years since Fukushima disaster. I still feel sorry for people of Fukushima and all living creatures affected by this meltdown. I feel sorry we contaminated our own planet Earth beyond our ability to repair. Most of all, I feel sorry you are our Prime Minister, Mr. Shinzo Abe. I feel sorry I cannot proud myself as being Japanese citizen. I wish you go away. Sincerely, Sarah Weinstein.
Thank you. Also, Carol Hisase-san wrote. Miho-san, please read. Here.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, sure. So this is from Carol Hisase from Los Osos, California. We have suffered with the madness following the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant accident for 7 years. How long will it go on? Why are you, Prime Minister Abe, and your administration not putting all your efforts into containment and decontamination? You have been putting the interests of corporations before those of your citizens. This is unacceptable. Clean up Fukushima. Continue to support evacuees and shut down all nuclear plants in Japan now.
And from Kawasaki, Japan, Che-san wrote just a part of it. So こことそれと名前だけ。彼名前。You can omit it.
Okay. Dear Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, the so-called March 11th Fukushima accident is by no means a natural disaster. Clearly, the private company, TEPCO, that was operating according to the Japanese government's policy caused the nuclear disaster. Nonetheless, your administration has taken no accountability for it. Support for residents who are victimized has been also far from sufficient. The Japanese government and TEPCO have failed to stop a massive underground water contaminated by radiation from streaming out to the Pacific Ocean every day. There has been warning regarding serious damages that the contaminated water might inflict on fish. In light of it, it seems inevitable that countries on the Pacific Rim, including the United States, would demand a large amount of reparations from Japan in near future. This is from Choi Seung-ko, Kawasaki, Japan.
Thank you. And also we got a letter from Maria Kelly from Tri-Valley Care. So Adrian Fong will read that. Thank you.
Dear Prime Minister, on behalf of its 5,700 members, Tri-Valley Cares stands in solidarity with the No Nukes Action Committee. Today at the Japanese Consulate in San Francisco, California, to commemorate the disaster at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant in the Fukushima prefecture that occurred on March 11th, 2011. This terrible catastrophe did not happen only on one day 7 years ago. Because of the hazards that radioactive contamination poses to the air, water, and land, and all life that exists upon it, the tragedy of Fukushima is with the people of Japan each and every day. Our hearts are with them. On this solemn anniversary, Tri-Valley Cares notes that your government recently announced acceptance of the 4 recommendations made at the United Nations Human Rights Council on the rights of evacuees from the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear accident. We concur with this decision. However, Prime Minister Abe, in order to comply with the recommendations, it is your responsibility to immediately change your government's policies and on-the-ground practices to uphold the rights of the victims, particularly women and children, and to protect residents from harmful radiation by dramatically reducing permitted radiation exposure. Sincerely, Mary Leah Kelly, Executive Director, Tri-Valley Cares, Livermore, California.
Thank you, Adrian. Thank you. And we can read all the letters, but the short one, Tomoko-san will read.
To Mr. Shinzo Abe, Prime Minister of Japan. 世界を平和に Peace to the world. 的子宮下東京。日本国民の安全と繁栄を主眼にした政治をしてほしい。武見大木、サンフランシスコ。
Thank you. Also, Jason Kamari wrote, he's in Ohio, omit the first and then just a few sentences. Care and provide for those evacuees who left the Fukushima region. Arrange meaningful employment, sustainable medical care, income, and shelter for those who are forced to leave. Care and provide for the health and safety of those working to clean up in the Daiichi plant as well as the general area. Make no contact or arrangement with organized crime contingencies. Work to expel all U.S. military bases immediately. The people of Japan have every right to be indignant and distrustful of any military presence in Okinawa and elsewhere. Rest of them omitted. And I want to thank the people who wrote letter this time. I couldn't read, but Sam Kano-san in Los Angeles, thank you. He said in the very first what he said. He said, 安倍自公政権の退陣を求めます。And Che-san wrote, and Kazuko Yamashita-san wrote in Japanese from Costa Rica. And also, let's see who else, Carol-san. And then Brendan Phillipson from Dublin, California, who is in tribal care. And Atsuko Uchida-san, yes, who is Los Angeles, wrote. Can I ask? Just from here. It has paragraph, right? Okay. Here. Okay. Let's go to that.
So she wrote, I demand the following from you. Do not eliminate subsidies for the evacuees and force them to go back to dangerous Fukushima. It is utterly inhumane to do so. Number 2, stop 2020 Tokyo Olympics. Instead of spending money for the Olympics, spend it well for continuous subsidies for the evacuees. Number 3, set up international committee with nuclear physicists and scientists from all over the world to establish action plans to safely decommission Fukushima nuclear power plant. We seriously need all the help we could possibly get. When next huge earthquakes hit Fukushima, it will be a tremendous disaster that no humans ever experienced before. Number 4, decommission all nuclear power plants in Japan. Restarting is out of the question. Nuclear power plants were designed to operate for 40 years or so. Continuing operation exceeding the initial plan is utterly dangerous. Number 5, complete investigation of Fukushima human-made disaster and prosecute people who are at fault. Accountability is very important in order not to repeat the same mistake again. Number 6, do not pursue Constitution amendment without Japanese citizens' agreement. Your approach is totally backwards. We will keep demanding. We will not be silenced because we believe in human rights. From Atsuko Uchida, Japanese citizen and resident in Fullerton, California. And this one too?
Thank you, Miho-san. And the next letter wrote by the peace workers David-san, yeah, please.
Thank you to everyone for being here. I'd like to share the letter that I've written to Prime Minister Abe. On this anniversary of the disastrous destruction of the Fukushima nuclear power plant, we appeal to you on behalf of all the victims of that destruction and all the people of the world to close all nuclear power plants in Japan. You can help Japan lead the world to a world of renewable energy, solar and wind, which is much safer, much better for the environment, and much less expensive. In addition, we appeal to you on behalf of all the people who died in the terrible destruction of Hiroshima and Nagasaki to say never again to the horrors of nuclear weapons by joining the majority of nations around the world in the nuclear ban treaty and forever giving up the nuclear bomb as a means of, quote, security for the people of Japan and the people of the world. Negotiation and diplomacy is much better and much safer means of resolving conflicts and achieving security than threatening one another with nuclear destruction. And finally, we hope you will join us and the world's people in supporting the leaders of South and North Korea in resolving the conflict between North and South Korea and North Korea and the USA by negotiation rather than threats of military conflict and massive loss of life for the people of both Koreas, the people of Japan, and the people of the whole world. As you know, if the Korean conflict were to escalate into a nuclear war, billions of people could die, and life as we know it could be no more on our beautiful planet. We are all living in a key moment in the history of the world, and we hope you will take courageous leadership and help lead the world from the destruction of nuclear power and nuclear weapons to a world of peace and prosperity for the people of Japan and the whole world. And just last night I heard Daniel Ellsberg talk about his new book called The Doomsday Machine, where he says that if we have, that our government's policy, American government's policy, has been to use nuclear weapons if we see it's in our interest. And that this could put an end to, this could kill at least 1 billion people. And if we have a full-scale nuclear war, it could be over 7 billion people dying. This makes Hiroshima and Nagasaki look like a pinprick. So I want to invite everyone to come out to Livermore on Good Friday, which is March 30th of this month, for a demonstration at 7 o'clock in the morning, calling on our government to close the nuclear weapons labs, which we are planning to spend over $1 trillion modernizing our nuclear weapons. This is insane. And to use nuclear weapons for anything in the world is insane. So thank you for being here. If you want a flyer about the Livermore action, I'll be happy to share one.
Thank you. I think it's about letter, the short book, last letter. I just read a few lines. You probably don't know, I mean, Abe Shusho Dono, you probably don't know that you are a criminal. You and your party have been pushing the nuclear energy even after the Fukushima meltdown. You and your party should be accountable for your criminal responsibility. Omit the rest. Thank you very much, everybody. And then I'd like to announce that the March 25th, next 2 weeks after, Sunday, in Berkeley, in the main library, we have a very wonderful documentary. It's called Nuclear Cutters. It is the farmers is taking care of the cattle, the abundance that the government ordered to be killed. But some farmers went there, the restricted area which they cannot live, but they went there and take care of those animals. So already tons of many animals died, but some animals are still survived because of those farmers. Those documentary is showing what is after Fukushima. So hope you have a chance to come. Its admission is free. It starts from 1:30, I think. So hope you have a chance to come. And then whoever have time, it's just like 3 blocks away. Is called Embarcadero Plaza. Not just in Harman Plaza because he's racist. So that name changed to so far Embarcadero Plaza. But before we go, whoever can please join the Hugh Block March. We like to take photograph. Could you please gather? Yeah, line up. Everybody to attend here, let's get taking photograph. Yes, please. Closer. Hiroshima, never again! Hiroshima, never again! Nagasaki, never again! Nagasaki, never again! Nagasaki, never again! Nagasaki, never again! No more wars! No more wars! Shut down all the nukes! 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 Fukushima never again! 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 Hiroshima never again! Hiroshima never again! Hiroshima never again! Hiroshima never again! Nagasaki never again! Nagasaki never again! Nagasaki never again! Nagasaki never again! Shut down all the nukes! 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 It's hard for you, but you want to.
My voice. Okay. No nukes now. No nukes now. Defend the Fukushima family. Defend the Fukushima family. Stop nukes now. Stop the nukes now. Stop the nukes now. Stop the nukes now. Stop the nukes now.
Stop nukes now!
No more nukes.
No more nukes!
No more nukes.
No more nukes!
Stop the nukes now.
Stop nukes now!
No more nukes.
No more nukes!
Stop the nukes now.
Stop the nukes now!
No more Fukushimas. 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 Stop the nukes now. Stop the nukes now. No more Fukushima. 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 Stop the nukes now. Stop the nukes now. No more Fukushimas. 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 Stop the nukes now.
Freedom of speech and opposition. So there. It's clean nuclear power. You know why?
Thank you for joining today. The 7th anniversary.
Diablo Candy Nuclear Power Plant myself. I'm energy auditor for the state of California. 41 years ago, Jackson Brown and Bonnie Raitt were in my back seat from Alley Rehearsal, North Hollywood. You see it on the internet or don't. We put on a concert calling attention to the dangers of nuclear power. 8 or 9 months ago, Diablo Canyon was decommissioned. I did it, along with others.
Yes, thank you.
We don't want Fukushima here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for joining, everybody. So, I want to see you again for the April 11th at front of the San Francisco Japanese consulate. We are here every 11th of every month. So if you have a chance, please join and please your word spread. And then we might see you a year later for the 8th anniversary. Because situation isn't get better, but we hope we cannot give up. We have to keep on standing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye. Bye bye. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.